Secret knowledge is rewarded not to those who vanquish foes outside of them, but to those who vanquish foes of their own inner and lower nature. And that is a personal quote of mine that I took from an excerpt of The Coiled Serpent. Now, I wanted to speak to you about this notion of occult knowledge. So occult knowledge has become synonymous with black magic. And there are a lot of negative connotations around black magic, of course. But when I refer to occult knowledge, I mean knowledge that has not yet come to light in the mainstream culture. It is knowledge that is hidden knowledge and only held by a few, a small percentage of the population. Now, part of Masculine Theory, you're all here on the Masculine Theory channel, is to explore areas beyond the constraining borders of Western science, but also being respectful to their utility. What I mean by that is, of course, like some of these various trite self-improvement YouTubers, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that taking cold showers will be very, very beneficial to you. And I deeply empathize with that, and I think there's a great amount of utility in them. However, I think there is certainly a great deal of value that is missed in not exploring the other, more esoteric realm of self-improvement, which is part and parcel of what I like to do here. So, the notion of sexual energy is disregarded by many, more than likely due to the fact that it falls outside the jurisdiction of this Western science and more evidence-related self-improvement. But I would like to also surmise that a great deal of shame, guilt, greed is tied into this area, making any exploration of the topic a very volatile one. I'm sure that it's going to be no surprise to you that men are very, very sensitive when it comes to talking about pornography, when it comes to talking about masturbation, when it comes to talk about sex and intimacy and all the areas when you're very, very vulnerable and transparent for all the world to see. Now, my purposes here are to initiate those of you men who are willing into a exploration of your sexual energies and sexual health as men. But why? Why on earth should we do that? Simply put, because this energy has had far too much control over your lives than many men are willing to admit. So much so that this modern man spends the majority of the time locked in the proverbial boot of his car with lust, desire, horniness, driving the car wherever they want to go, instead of you driving the car where you want to go. In this way, you have given up control, direction, and jurisdiction over your own life. And if you're sick of that, then maybe this is the video for you. Sex as a weapon. So in 2002, it was reported that Israel had weaponized pornography. So I'm just going to read you a following excerpt that came from Reason.com. When Palestine residents of the besieged West Bank town of Ramallah turned on their TVs over the weekend, what they encountered was neither news nor any of the usual Palestine Authority programming. They encountered pornographic movie clips. Wow. Three or four of the stations in Ramallah, I'm probably butchering that, by the way, headquarters of Yasser Arafat had been occupied by the Israeli troops. The town's remaining TV stations was meanwhile running a crawl at the bottom of the screen, explaining that the porn clips were the work of the occupying forces in that country. So an uninitiated man asks why. Why on earth would a opposing force, an occupying force, seek to do this? Those of you who are already aware know that this isn't the first and won't be the last time pornography has been used to win a war. Sometimes you can win a war without firing a single bullet or a single missile. It can be all mental psychological warfare. Now, there is nothing more weak than a man who has all of his basic needs met, especially in a sexual context. The occupying forces used this strategy, as well as littering the streets of this Muslim country with pornography, with leaflets, with posters, with flyers of prostitutes, to weaken the wills of those men, to break the wills of those men, making them very docile, compliant, and weak. Needless to say, the wolf who hasn't eaten in 4 days is more dangerous than the one who has a full belly. This you should already know. Carnality suppresses the power of the soul. So in occultism, there is often described the evolved man. This is a term that I've come across while reading a lot of occultist texts. Now, the evolved man is described as an individual who has all of his faculties under his command. The sharpness of his mind, the strength of his body, and the power of his soul are completely owned by him. He has complete jurisdiction over his instruments. So when I think about self-improvement, this has to be the pinnacle of what that means. So again, occultism is often conflated with a lot of negative connotations, but it's self-improvement. It's complete ownership over this animal that we live in. Perfection in the instrument of mind, body, and soul. There is nothing black magic about that. The journey towards becoming an accomplished occultist begin through practicing purity in all of these areas. So how does one start to go through this initiated path of the occultist and practice purity? Well, I take great value from Hinduism in this regard, in respects to what they describe as ascetic practices. So the ascetic is to live a life of renunciation. So many, not just Hindu, but Eastern philosophies, religions, and practices stem from ascetic exercises. Things like fasting, things like meditation are forms of asceticism and renunciation fundamentally. I know I'm speaking largely to a Western audience, so renunciation might be the best terminology that you use to better make this point palatable for you. And when I mean renunciation, I can see all of your minds going into this vision of a monk, bald-headed, dressed in orange robes, sitting in a dirty cave in the top of the Himalayas, meditating for 16 hours a day. That is far too outside the remits of a lot of your jurisdiction and what's realistic for you living in modern Western culture if you're a man who's living in this culture like I am. So what is going to be a more ingratiating way to bring us into this path of purity, renunciation, and the ascetic without going to the extremes and something that again is far outside the remit of our possibilities living where we live. Practicing purity on the path of occultism for many of you may look as simple as removing temptation or suggestive images from your social media, namely something like Instagram. There's a great feature on Instagram, that's weird to hear me say great features on Instagram or any social media because it's often fraught with a lot of negative connotations, but you can deactivate your Instagram profile where you can just take a break. You can deactivate it. You don't have to delete your profile and have that anxiety of not being able to get in touch with your friends and lead that online social life, as I know it's very precious and often inseparable for many of us. But deactivate it for 30 days and see how you feel. Do a personal experiment. Again, many of you who are looking to go down this path of improving your lives often jump too far or you stretch too much. And if you stretch too much, you'll break. So you need to find something that's going to be easy for you. If 30 days without Instagram is too much of a challenge for you, try a week, try a day. You always need to take small steps towards this. And then once you have your strength and you develop that muscle, because willpower is a muscle, then you'll be able to go into the next particular challenge with far more confidence and far more strength as well. But why is doing a simple task like that going to lead to the development of higher knowledge? It's a good question. From what I've learned, not just through the occultist texts, but especially the Vedas, I can speak about a particular book called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is a mind-blowing text, one of the most valuable texts I have in my library, is that the emotion of desire that you experience is one of life's biggest tricks. Let me say that one more time. The emotion of desire is a real thing, by the way. It's not bad that you experience desire, but it's bad. It's detrimental if you identify with the desire too frequently. And because you play an evil trick on yourself. So I'll get to this in just a moment. It tricks you into believing that you are incomplete and that you need something outside of yourself to make yourself feel whole. So when many men are addicted to pornography or sexual material online, they are affirming to their psychology, to their biology, to their physiology that I am incomplete, that I'm craving something outside of me to make myself feel whole because I don't feel whole. I can't be content just sitting here. I need something else to give me that pleasure, to give me that joy, to make me feel whole. When you hold onto the desire of pleasure, you frame yourself as a beggar to God and to the universe. And know this, the world is a mirror, it only reflects that which you are. If the divine mind sees you as a beggar and sees you as somebody who is incomplete, who needs things outside of them in order to feel that wholeness, it will never give you universal knowledge because you're unworthy. You don't deserve it. You are still clinging on to, you're still attached to things in the tangible 3D realm that you see here, what you can pick up by your five senses. If you're fooled by your five senses, then how are you worthy to get information or downloads, as Tesla would call it, from the infinite mind, from the sixth sense, as many people would describe it, from God mind, from God consciousness? Now, this goes beyond the level of what you think. You must understand the universe will judge you at the level of your feelings, and more importantly, what you act as a response to those feelings. If you're constantly acting and feeling from a place of incompletion, then you're not in alignment. You're incongruent. You're not in alignment with God or the universe, whatever term you would like to use. And I mentioned the man who knew. I mentioned there is no greater example of this than Nikola Tesla. I'm sure that this is a very cliche quote that you would have heard many times, but if you want to understand the laws of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, vibration. Anything is energy. He's referring there to universal mind. The fact that if you zoom into a atom, particle, that 99% of it is nothing. It's all potential. It's all observation. It's all your perspective and your belief systems. In that if you believe that you are incomplete, if you believe that you always need to act from a level of incompleteness, that you are identified with this animal, identified with your emotions, identified with your cravings, then that's all you'll ever get. You'll always be tied to the physical, and you'll never get to experience what the occultists call higher knowledge, the knowledge of an evolved man, an individual that is in alignment with God, in alignment with the universe. Nikola Tesla was a celibate until he died, and he credited most of his inventions, not to himself, but to the universe. They came to him. He was given them. He didn't come up with it through the senses that he could see. He didn't read a book and reimagine something from somebody else's work. He didn't smell something and then have a moment of insight. He didn't see something. He didn't hear something. He didn't taste something. These senses are all based on the tangible. What I'm trying to convey to you here is you're constantly reaffirming your identification on the tangible, on the feeling, on the craving, of the desire outside of you, then you will never get access to things beyond you, beyond your understanding, beyond the physical. And Tesla knew this. Tesla knew this more than any others. And this is where you start to pick up on things like synchronicities, you know? If you think about everything that exists in the world, it's all a remix of something that's already existing, you know? Let's take this video, for example. This video is a rehashing of some of the things that I've read in the past, or I've listened to in the past, or I've had in conversation. You know, they're all an amalgamation of that. But if you want divine knowledge, if you want something that is often described as pure intuition, pure inspiration, pure creativity, it doesn't come from what you can see and pick up by the five senses. It comes from something higher. It comes from those moments in meditations where you get, I mean, the Hindus call it satori, you know, when you're in complete yoga and in complete alignment with God. And meditation is the greatest austerity, is the greatest practice of renunciation and asceticism as anything, because you're closing off all of your senses to the outside world and you're bringing it inwards. You're bringing it into the universal mind. And that's where you start to get those profound downloads and profound insight into life and existence. And that's partly part and parcel why I'm on this spiritual journey and why I've become the man I am today, because I fasted from sensory experience and I journeyed inward and I found the witness inside of me, the Atman, the Pneuma. I found God within me, and there's no doubt in my mind. I don't need the proof. I don't need the physical proof, because it goes deeper than that. It's more an experience, and it's difficult to relay in terms of something else that's, again, sensory, my voice. Anyway, I'm sparring a little bit here, gentlemen. So just to kind of summarize this video, do not place attachment to forces that are found in your senses, because they'll keep you bound to the world. Don't be attached to your lower nature, to carnality, and try as much as you can to separate yourself from your try as best as you can to stop identifying with them and practice a life of purity in which you're more frequently renouncing things that keep you, again, trapped, attached, chained is another way to think of it. Anyway, gentlemen, take what is valuable, discard which is not, and I'll bring you something else very, very soon. Take care, my friends.